Good morning and happy Friday. Here we are with um, Coffee Time with Kauffman, the comfortable place to talk about women's leadership. And today we are talking about the fleecing of the feminine. But before I get into that, my name is Maria Kauffman and I'm a life coach. Today's coffee for me is chocolate hazelnut cream. This week, I ran into a bit of a coffee issue. I ran out of my dark roast, which is kind of surprising. I've been on a regular habit daily of, and I can get into my routines. So, my daily habit of doing the dark roast during the week came up dry because apparently there's been some shipping issues. I'm sure many people, especially this time of the year, not only with still the effects of the global pandemic, but also with the holiday season, right? I can't believe we are a good midway, a little bit past midway of December. The end of the year is coming upon us. So I had to uh, drink the coffee that I had. I had a pretty good stash of my flavored coffee, which, like I mentioned, I think it's a little bit weaker, not as strong as my dark roast. So I've had a pretty interesting week. I enjoy the flavored coffees. I do like to use it as a treat. That's something that is I maybe happens on the weekend. Um, like I said, and I do like my daily routine Monday through Friday. So I'm a little off this week. So that is my flavor of the day. When I first started drinking coffee, I had to have cream and sugar just to be able to stomach the coffee. At that time, it probably was very interesting, whatever was in my diet at the time back in college. A lot of things have changed for me. Now I can't do sugar. Sugar is really, really bad for me. But I do like a little bit of room in my coffee so that I can have some cream. And I think that philosophy of leaving room when you order coffee is a nice metaphor for life. If I had to order life, I would order life with a little bit of room. And for me, what that means is the unexpected is going to happen from time to time. And when I'm in those moments or those time periods where I'm so driven and I'm so full that I don't have that little extra room to enjoy some of the extra pieces, I miss the opportunity for all that enjoyment and smelling those roses along the way. So, yeah, I think a little bit of coffee in life has some pretty awesome metaphors. And speaking of life and the end of the year, so as we do come to the end of the year, there is still in 2 weeks' time, that is plenty of time to put in some of those last minute goals. Don't give up if you can, but don't burn yourself out either. Maybe the stress is just not worth it. But if there's something that you really want and you can squeeze it in, I always say go for it. If it's important to you, go get it. 2021 for me, I would have to say by far has been my best year ever. It certainly has come with many, many challenges, new challenges, different challenges, and challenges that have pushed me far outside my comfort zone. And I believe that's part of the recipe that made it the best year for me ever. Starting this broadcast is one of my favorite accomplishments. So it certainly is a pleasure to be here with you. And as we hang out and talk about women's leadership, we must talk about some definitions that help explain some of those tricky areas that women are running into as they discover the truth about what they are capable of. And that leads us to the topic of the week, the fleecing of the feminine. Here's how I define what I call is a fleecing of the feminine. A fleecing of the feminine is any situation that withholds the truth, specifically when it comes to women's accomplishments, achievements, or capabilities, in an effort to consciously or unconsciously keep women small. So, with that definition, I'm sure there's a lot of women out there that can relate and probably have many, many stories of their own situations that can be called the fleecing of the feminine. So here's what happened to me. Streaming movies on the internet happened to me. And all of a sudden, people like myself are able to watch what you want to watch when you want to watch it. I know it's mind-blowing and certainly a luxury. So I did a little bit of research before this episode, and it seems that streaming started about the year 2007. In 2007, there was a lot of technology booms going on in many different ways. So looking back, it may be no surprise that streaming movies on the internet came along. And at this point in time, maybe less than about 15 years later, it is a normal way of life. It's kind of expected. And who would want to give it up at this point? It is definitely something that I do on a regular, if not a daily basis. So streaming has certainly changed the world. And certainly in a crazy way. So when streaming comes along, what I also noticed, and I didn't notice it at the time, but certainly behind the scenes, data started happening and businesses started getting wicked smart about their customers. Now, the good thing I felt at the time, certainly, was that someone was getting to know me. Like somehow there was always the perfect movie for me. And the more I watched, the more someone seemed to be getting to know what I liked and started delivering more of the same, which is quite a luxury. Once again, it's nice to feel noticed, especially in those ways that make you happy and bring you joy. So along the way, there was one movie that really stood out and inspired the fleecing of the feminine. And that movie was a movie called Mercury 13. And the first time I saw it, it hit me. How could I live a life as a female engineer? And at that point in time, I was probably 20 years into my career. And I had never heard the truth about the story behind Mercury 13. And one of the instant recognitions that I noticed was this a similarity, if anyone is striking the resemblance of the title, Fleecing of the Feminine. Tom Brokaw used to have a segment on NBC Nightly News called Fleecing of America. I remember watching it and always thinking, wow, it's so awesome to be able to watch the news and find out about these situations in life where either a whole group of people or maybe even just an individual was getting fleeced or basically swindled in some way. And that left a mark on me. I remember watching those segments with Tom Brokaw, who did a fabulous job. And I would walk away thinking, I just feel more educated and certainly inspired to avoid the swindling or do something maybe that would counteract the fleecing of America. And that's exactly what hit me when I started watching some of these movies. And some of those movies were about people like Marie Curie, certainly the Mercury 13, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Mae West was one that came up and hit me big. As I was, during that time, I'll say, between 2000 and 2010, and maybe even a little bit after, I was starting to do a lot of research on leadership development, women's leadership, women's empowerment. I was reading books, watching movies. I was actively seeking all of this information. And one of the interesting things for me over a long period of time was I was in a women's empowerment program, and I heard other women, very, very empowered women. It is a really, really amazing space to be in those communities. Mention Mae West. And when I heard them mention Mae West, I recall the name, but I really had no idea who she was or what she was all about. And at that point in time, I can't even remember, was I watching these movies and did I understand that some of this information was either being hidden from me or that it was available and I just didn't know it yet. So, I hear Mae West, and she's got some amazing quotes. If you ever need some inspiration for some women's leadership or women's empowerment, Mae West has got some great ones, and I've used them myself. But I really didn't know anything about Mae West. But a Mae West movie, somewhat recently, I would even say I recently, within the past 2 years, discovered the movie Mae West, Dirty Blonde. And it really, really kind of blew my mind. I, once again, had another movie where I couldn't believe that I was a woman doing what I'm doing and driven and inspired by women's leadership, and I hadn't really understood the real story about Mae West. She is definitely one that I would recommend and encourage you finding a little bit more about. I certainly, through the broadcast, will share some, if not at a minimum, some of her quotes. Her life story is interesting whenever you track the timeline. And by track the timeline, what I'm talking about is many of these, if we just look at the last 100 years of what's been going on specifically for women's leadership, it's fascinating. I'm fascinated. I'm more curious than ever to understand how a lot of this stuff relates to each other. And Mae West is one of them, because that was back in about 1920 to 1940s. Now, she had a long career. Her career lasted like 70 years. She loved what she did, whatever she was doing. And she was incredibly driven as a woman leader in the world, certainly in America, if not her impact went certainly around the globe for sure. But the timing is interesting, because as I'm watching all of these movies during, I'll say, what is for me a relatively short amount of time, it's interesting to make the ties between other things that are happening during the same time frame, maybe in different ways, in different spaces, from different people, different voices. And I can tell you this, everyone matters. Absolutely everyone matters. And by that, I'll also say, throughout my career, I've definitely ran into many situations as what I would call is a fleecing of the feminine. There were probably times where I responded pretty poorly to some of those situations. And there's also times where I responded really empowered and as a true woman's leader. So we'll be sharing some of those stories throughout the broadcast, I'm sure, as things go along. But just to talk about some of the other women that have inspired me in a very short amount of time, just by being able to stream movies online, are Hedy Lamarr. Fabulous story and somewhat certainly inspirational in many ways. She was amazing, amazing inventor, beautiful woman, incredibly inspiring, a real go-getter. But in the end, on a certain level, talk about a fleecing of the feminine, really, really devastating, and quite a heartbreak of a story with her story. Temple Grandin is another one. I don't know. I watched the Temple Grandin movie and nothing but inspiration about what is possible being a woman living. It almost doesn't even matter what time frame, we're talking about, but she's pretty modern. And it's amazing what a woman can do in the world when she's supported. Certainly, support is one of the big factors in making sure that you are on the way to success. And the crazy thing is, sometimes you don't need, as far as quantity is concerned, you don't need many people that support you. You do need people who completely support you and believe in you. They might not even have to know what you're doing or understand what you're doing, but support is one of the most important ingredients to a woman's success. And I hope everybody out there has that support and knows that someone, at least one person in life, completely supports whatever your endeavors are, and certainly in women's leadership or in life. Go do what you want to do and don't let anything hold you back. The women from Hidden Figures. When you watch that movie, certainly as a female engineer, the biggest thing for me too, maybe, is the realization that it seems like there are some things that have not changed over a long period of time. And I find that fascinating too. For me, what that means is maybe, we should just drop the energy around it. This is what I mean, is that at some point in time, I think as a young, female engineer, the battles that I was facing and the fleecing of the feminine that I was running into, I thought that by showing up and showing people that I was capable and doing my thing would make it all go away. And on some level, that is the most important thing that you can do, is not let anyone tell you that you can't do anything or believe that. The most important thing is, regardless of the situation that you're in, that you do whatever you want to accomplish in life. Go for it. Decades later, looking at this, I did believe that by going out there and doing that I would see more change. And one of the best movies that helped me understand maybe why and what is really happening was Gina Davis's movie. I think it's called This Changes Everything. So Gina Davis is truly inspirational. She is one that still does not stop. She's still out there doing incredible things for women's leadership and never backing down, looking at each day as a new opportunity to set new heights for herself and new accomplishments. So that's incredibly inspiring. And I too now have completely kind of changed, I'll say, my outlook for the future. And anything is possible. And there's still plenty of stuff to do, maybe in some small ways, maybe in some big ways. Plenty of opportunity for women's leadership. Gloria Steinem was another one. Who doesn't know Gloria Steinem? There's probably two women, I'll say, and I might say Mae West too. I did mention her. But even though I knew Mae West kind of in a background, she's not one that was in the forefront. And maybe it's just because of the time frame. Anyways, there's two other women that really stand out for me in that everyone seems to know them, but I'm curious if everyone really understands their story. And that is Gloria Steinem is one of them, and Mother Teresa is another one. So most of these, including Gloria Steinem, actually even including Mother Teresa, there are some pretty awesome movies out there that document some of the things that they've done. Gloria Steinem was one that I knew, certainly I had heard the name. Once again, who doesn't know Gloria Steinem? But I didn't know her story. And the movie certainly highlights and brings light to the challenges and the obstacles that she had to overcome and in the way that she had to overcome them. Gloria Steinem was one who had a really amazing support system. If you're just reaching out and you're thinking that maybe you only have one or two people in your life that really support, Gloria seemed to be, at least from my perspective, I don't know, maybe Gloria would say something different. She was incredibly well supported by some other really, really inspiring women's leaders. Mother Teresa, I read the book on Mother Teresa before, maybe it was about the time that streaming movies came about. Once again, at the time, I don't think you could have stopped me from finding the information and looking for the information in whatever form I could get it. And I remember reading the authorized biography of Mother Teresa and just being absolutely amazed at the story, I'll say the real story behind her. So in the news, you're going to hear about her. Certainly, she's a well-known figure. She is women's leadership defined in her form. But I didn't know her story. And when you start to understand and learn some of these stories, for me, there's a deeper connection and a beauty behind knowing these are also real women who have lived some very, very interesting lives. We are all going through some very challenging situations, probably regardless of who you are. And those stories are powerful. I believe they need to be heard and shared. And that is part of why I do what I do. So thanks to Tom Brokaw for a catchy inspiration to a title and for doing the work that he did. It certainly inspired me. So I want to leave you with a quote, which certainly inspired me after watching the movie Mercury 13. And the quote comes from a woman by the name of Sarah Ratley. She was one of the Mercury 13. And Sarah says, someone has to start the fight, to change the opinion. Someone has to lead the way. And I think that's beautiful because we are starting to see some really amazing women leaders. Thank goodness to the evolution of technology, and thank goodness to social media. I watch them. They inspire me every day, and there's tons out there. I encourage you to get equally as inspired so that you can do what you do. Because I know from my experience that there were many times that I let myself be underestimated just to find out that I was much more capable than my male counterparts. It is a fleecing of the feminine. And to all the women in the world driving towards your dream life and career or business goals, you have my full support and encouragement. It's past time to change the world for the better. So Coffee Time with Kauffman is the comfortable place to discuss women's leadership because I'm on a mission to help the world discover the truth about what women are capable of. When you are ready for your leadership mastery makeover, go to mariakaufman.com and click on Consult a Coach, where you can schedule time with me for an empowerment session. Have a great week. Enjoy your adventures and journey responsibly. Have a great day. Good to see you.